Will the Hornets finally move on from one of the veterans on the roster? We'll preview the game against Brookyln, and then Doug has a surprise segment. I have no clue what it's going to be, but we'll discuss it all today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Today's episode...
Game Time?
Yep, Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's Doug Branson. You can catch him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Go check out all that Charlotte Hornets content. And I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m., 92.7 FM. And if you're watching us on YouTube, which you should be, you can make us your first listen there, then you can see now I am the one with an old but different background now. There is the fish tank. It's you can barely see it in this frame, but the fish tank is right there. And we might have to bring out the fish puns. We talked about that a little bit. I know a couple people brought them to the table last time. Rachel did an excellent job when she sent in a bunch of fish puns. So maybe we can roll with that today.
Brookyln game. Brookyln game tonight. Harry Gills III on that roster.
It's the Brookyln Fish Nets. That's who they're going to be playing tonight.
Hey, all right, here we go.
All right,
we're rolling.
Boom, baby. Yes, and just to let everybody know, so with the construction going on the house, and Doug can attest to this, as soon as he pressed record on the cold open, that is when the power drill revved up to where I could not hear anything other than the power drill on the outside. And so I said, hey, I need 10 minutes. Let me set up in the other room. And now here we are. So we're trying. We try, Jennifer. That's the best thing we can do.
Well, I can't attest to anything because I've never done construction on my house to add a 7th bedroom, and a spa room. So, no, I can't attest to that. I don't make that sweet, sweet radio professional money.
Oh, yeah.
I make podcast money.
No, you should come out and check the sauna, and then maybe we can, drink some wine and stuff like that. That'll be great. Ooh. That'll be excellent. I don't know why I took it so romantic. Let's move on.
I don't know, but I like it.
Okay, yeah. We've become very close as a podcast. Let's move on very quickly. So Gordon Hayward trade rumors. You see it in the first bullet point on the tag board. And there are some out there. Doug, why don't you tell the people what the Gordon Hayward trade rumors are and whether you might be interested?
Oh boy, I didn't have my rundown up. I wasn't ready for this, but I will tell you that
that's okay. I got it if you want me to. So here's the thing. Yep. So Charlotte. So there are reports that the Hornets are getting multiple calls on Gordon Hayward, and that there are multiple playoff caliber teams that have called to gauge Gordon Hayward's trade availability. That's what Hoops Hype has learned. Now, in that article, Charlotte is focused on getting healthy and competing for a playoff spot now. However, if Charlotte remains on the outside of the play-in picture, the Hornets could give number 2 overall pick Brandon Miller more minutes at small forward by moving on from Hayward, who turns 34 years old in March. Okay, so with that being said, I didn't mean to throw that at you. I apologize. But now that you know the details with this report, is this going to happen? Are they going to trade Gordon Hayward right before his contract ends?
We've been thinking this was going to happen for a long time, and it hasn't happened. And now it seems like that if it did happen, it would almost be at the detriment of the team because Gordon Hayward's contract is finally going to be lifted off of the books. And there is some concern that if they did deal with one of these playoff caliber teams, whatever, that they would have to bring back some kind of bad situation in order to obtain something that they would want, which is like future draft picks and things that typically you would acquire when moving a player with an expiring contract. But we'll have to see. I'm curious as to how these rumors got out there. If this is the team, subtly leaking that, hey, Gordon Hayward will be available. And, we're still trying to make the playoffs. He's not available. And multiple playoff caliber teams. We're talking to a lot of, what's that? Oh, that was another playoff caliber team trying to talk to me right now. Like, is that kind of situation or what? I don't know. I don't know what to make of this because, like, if you look at Gordon's stats this season, I'm not sure that he's like entirely attractive to a playoff caliber team. We're not talking about a guy who's playing his best basketball. We're talking about a guy right now who's playing the worst basketball of his career sans rookie season. I mean, in terms of his shot efficiency, he's in the like third and fourth percentile in terms of true shooting, effective field goal percentage. His numbers in the mid-range, which is like what Gordon Hayward does offensively. Like that's what you're buying is mid-range. That's totally in the tank. He's shooting 32.7% from the mid-range, which is near bottom of the league. So I don't know what playoff caliber teams would be buying.
Yeah, I do think that Gordon Hayward for playoff teams, I do think he is a perfect buy candidate, because even if Gordon Hayward is 34 and he's not going to get any better, at least compared to what he was last year, I don't expect those numbers to be that bad the rest of the year. And so if you go after Gordon Hayward, and he might be able to help you off the bench because a playoff team is not starting Gordon Hayward. But the real value is getting the $30 million off of the books thing. So the playoff caliber teams, yeah, they might want to go after Gordon Hayward and give up something. But also that means they're going to free up $30 million in cap space this upcoming offseason. And so the playoff caliber teams are then going to have a bunch of cap space to then make those playoff caliber teams better. So at least that's the thought in free agency once a bunch of players hit the market. And so now you're right, Doug. It doesn't mean that I think Gordon Hayward is so valuable on the floor that you can't get rid of him. That's not what this means at all. You're right. He's not playing well whatsoever. What it does mean is that I want that 30 mil myself. I want that space. It doesn't mean that the Hornets are going to make great use of it, but at least there is an open door. At least you get off of this contract that you've had for a while. It's not been a great one given his injury history, but now it's almost an asset, his contract. And this is somebody that I don't expect to continue to shoot as poorly as he is. Last thing for me, Brandon Miller's already getting a lot of minutes. I'm fine with giving Brandon more, but Gordon Hayward is not taking a ton away from him. If you look, he's averaging about 30. If you look at what he's done in the month of November, even in October, when it was Gordon Hayward out there too, he was still giving you over 30 minutes. He's averaging Brandon Miller 32. I'm sorry. That was Gordon Miller, but he's still averaging over 30 minutes a game. That's what Brandon Miller's averaging. So it's like that's enough for me. If you want to give him 34 a game, okay. But I don't want to give up $30 million just to create that extra 2 minutes.
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, you would at least get to slot Brandon Miller at some point in the position that he, I think, will ultimately play, which is the 3 and not the 2. So, but the problem is that if he starts a significant portion of the rest of the season, he goes from getting cooked by Jalen Brunson to getting cooked by R.J. Barrett in the Knicks example here, right? Like the problem that we noted defensively for him, like good defensive player, will be, I think, potentially a great defensive player in the future, but he doesn't have the size to guard big threes, and he doesn't have the quickness to stay with, super quick twos. And so you're going to see that continue to play out if he were to start significant amounts of time. They're going to have to figure out a way to deal with that. And that's fine. Figure out a way to deal with it, because that's ultimately going to be the player, 2, 3, 4 years from now that is anchoring your team. So ultimately, I'm fine with that. Just kind of wanted to put that point out there. The Hornets have an issue, and that issue is that they should probably move Gordon Hayward as quickly as possible before he does get injured. Like every game that he plays, you risk another injury, and then it suddenly, and we've seen this happen before. Like I'm sure they would have had trade opportunities in years past to get off this money, but he ends up getting injured before the trade deadline. But the max value that you can get for Gordon Hayward is not going to happen on November 30th. It's going to happen on,
right
January 31st or whatever, 30 days out of September. Yeah, January 31st. Like that's going to be your max value right before the trade deadline. And the other weird issue is that if you trade Gordon Hayward for draft picks and whatever salary machinations have to happen to make it happen, you're essentially as an organization saying, okay, we're not going to make the playoffs. We're not a play-in team. We're not focusing on that anymore. But then what does that mean for the front office? Because like to me, it's like it's play in or bust for this front office, for this coaching staff. So the same front office that would be throwing in the towel would essentially be throwing in, I guess they're throwing in their desk, their office, and boxing their stuff up and leaving. Because that would be, to me, that would be it. So it's a weird situation overall.
It is, yeah.
But I do, Walker, I do have a perfect candidate to trade for Gordon Hayward, and I can tell you. Next.
Okay, great tease. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Doug will give you that delicious nugget, and we will preview the game against Brookyln tonight, but not before we talk about Game Time. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. That's why this episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. It's that easy. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets, and they have deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, and you can download the Game Time app and create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. Locked On NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Doug, you're right. I didn't think about the aspect of the front office probably not going to be here anyway. And so what they're trying to do, theoretically, what their job is to do is to set this franchise up the best it possibly can be for the future. But the future does not mean them, that they are not a part of the future. And so now I go back, it's a different situation, but I always think of Stan Van Gundy in this situation, which I guess there is the close connection to Steve Clifford here. But when Stan Van Gundy had control of being both the coach and roster and was the GM, he goes all in for a Blake Griffin trade. And he goes all in for Blake Griffin to help him right now when he was on the hot seat. And Blake Griffin and the Detroit Pistons, they get to the postseason. And he was actually really good for the Pistons. But it wasn't about Blake Griffin. It was about how much better did that make their team and set them up for the future. And they get to the 8th seed, get destroyed, I think, in like 4 games. I think it was a sweep against Milwaukee, and that was it. That was the most success that Blake Griffin team really ever had, I believe. And so you're making the decision for yourself because you can understand. You want to do everything you can to keep your job, and so that seems like a good idea at the time, but it's probably not a great idea for the franchise. And so is that something that Mitch Kupchak is going to do? Look, very different situations with Stan and Mitch, but it's the same idea as far as, am I going to make a move now that benefits me, or at least that I think has a shot at giving me some more life? Or am I going to try to do what's best for the organization in the future? And that's a dicey situation with Gordon Hayward on the books right now.
Oh, definitely. Now, do you want to hear that's all great. The very smart things that you just said there.
Wow.
Do you want to hear, let's give the people what they actually want, which is a mock trade. Everybody wants the mock trade.
That's true.
So do you want my perfect candidate for a Gordon Hayward trade?
Yeah, give me your mock trade. Come on, let's hear it.
So I don't know that I have the exact terms down, but I'll tell you how I stumbled upon this team. I was looking for, because I'm asking myself, like, if they trade Gordon Hayward, obviously draft picks could be a thing that you acquire, but could they come away with a player that would help them at the 2 positions that I think are most of need right now, which is a backup point guard or somebody that could take some actual starting point guard minutes while LaMelo is out. And then the center position, they need a center that can shoot, or a big that can shoot, to provide some more spacing in that big rotation. And right now, with Nick Richards out, they just need a backup big. So I was looking for a big that can shoot, and I found Dario Saric, but the contract too small. But he plays for the Golden State Warriors. Now let's think about what's going on in Golden State Warriors land right now. Talk about a team that needs to shed some salary. They've got some interesting situations that they're coming up on. Klay Thompson not playing well right now, but is so liked by that core that losing him would be, I think, detrimental to the team's morale, such that you're going to prevent future playoff runs, future championship runs. So maybe they're finding ways. How can we find some ways in the books here? I think a Gordon Hayward trade might do it. And there's another player that they have that was just traded to them that is also a point guard. Who do you think I'm talking about? From North.
Are you trying to bring him home again? Are you
trying to bring him home again? I'm talking about Chris Paul, who listen to this, has a $30 million contract. So 30 and 9 with Saric. I don't know if that trade exactly works with Gordon Hayward. Okay, $30 million. But get this, next season, it's only partially guaranteed beginning in June. So you could dump that contract. Both teams win. What do you think?
The only thing is, I think Chris Paul, I guess I haven't been checking up on as much on him, but hasn't he been playing well for them? And so if their goal is to still continue to make a run at the postseason, if he's been playing well, then I don't know if they would be, thrilled to get rid of him like that.
Well, that's okay. That's fine. But everybody has to make sacrifices. Okay. And if you're the Golden State Warriors and you're looking towards the future, maybe it's slightly, look, you've got enough stars. You throw a rock and you hit an all-star there. Mm-hmm. I mean, stack them up. That was the whole thing. That was one of our bumps one time. So, they can afford to lose someone if it means that they can retain Klay Thompson and keep that main core happy. Because Chris Paul's not part of the main core. But he could solve an issue this season for the Hornets. And I'm trying to think of a deal that a Mitch Kupchak, who is trying to save his job, would do and also not hurt the team long term. That's why, to me, it's not like the ultimate deal that I would make, but it is the perfect deal for a front office that is both trying to save their job this season and set the team up for future success.
I came up with a crazy one. Do you want to hear another crazy one?
Oh, yeah, I love it. Forget this Brookyln game. Who cares about this Brookyln game? Give me all the mock trades. By the way, we as a podcast, we are not beneath this. We are not beneath the Zach LaVine talk because it's fun. Because in a season like this, I want to talk Zach LaVine. I want to talk trades. I want to talk the future because I have a positive vision of I don't think the front office does for some reason. I have a positive vision of the future and I want to see that enacted. So we as a podcast, I'm just going to tell you right now, we're not fishing for clicks, but we are not beneath talking about this.
No, we are not. All right. So I'm putting it in the trade machine now just to see exactly how it would work, but it would be very close. And that's the trade machine. We're going to try this trade. This trade is successful with the picks, of course, needing to come in. Okay. So this is what it would be. This one is truly sicko. I'm going to throw up behavior. How about trading Gordon Hayward to a team that has been linked to him in thought processes from national pundits, the Philadelphia 76ers. Ooh. Okay. And in order for you to not bring on any more money in the future, what you could also do is bring back Marcus Morris, 17 million. I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry. $17 million he's going to make, but just this year. So it's
right
off
twin
the books.
Or wrong twin? Is that the right twin or the wrong twin?
Yeah, Marcus Morris, you bring him in. And talk about bringing people home, Doug.
Wait.
Yeah.
No.
The guy they just acquired in a trade with James Harden.
Are you kidding me?
Bring him back. Nick Batum. Bring back Nick Batum, Marcus Morris,
I'm dry
and
heaving.
Trade picks.
There's nothing coming out.
And the 2024, because Philadelphia, I was checking this out too. Philadelphia does own their 2024 first rounder. And so if you got the first round pick, yeah, man.
The Hornets should just swap Nick Batum and Gordon Hayward for the rest of eternity. That should be the NBA rules. Should be somehow Gordon Hayward and Nick Batum have to swap places. Well, and it's like a Freaky Friday for terrible forwards.
Well, it's only right because with Nick Batum now,
I shouldn't say terrible, disappointing. They're not terrible. They're good basketball players in their own right. They're just disappointing.
You thought you were done paying Nick Batum. You thought you were done with the stretch clause, but no, you brought him back, and now you're actually paying him again for the fourth straight year, except now he's playing for your team. Those are the trades that we came up with. Roast us. Roast us, we deserve.
Or aggregate us. I would like Michael Scotto to pick that up on Hoops Hype.
Yeah. Oh, man. It was the DeAndre Ayton time that I got aggregated like it was an actual thing. No, that's not what happened. It was weird. All right. We got one more segment to go. Maybe we get to the Brookyln game. We also have a surprise segment coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
I have no clue what's coming up, to be honest with you. But don't go to sleep on us because Eric Collins told you not to. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We love FanDuel. We use them for Bet the Buzz. Doug, if you want to pull up that line for me in just a moment, I can go to you, and then we can see what that line is for Hornets and Nets. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and even more than that. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season and tip off the NBA season. What you got for me, Doug? What does FanDuel have as far as the spread for this Nets-Hornets game?
You want to give it a guess?
I would go Nets favored by 6.5.
Oh, so close. Nets favored by 8. The over-under set at 225. And would you like to guess the top Hornet scorer? Who is most likely to score 10-plus points for the Charlotte Hornets?
Well, it was Terry Rozier against the Knicks, and so my guess was Miles Bridges. I'll go with Miles again since Terry didn't have the greatest scoring night, so let's go Miles.
So Miles is favored actually to score 15-plus points for the Hornets, but they've got Brandon Miller as your kind of lock to score 10-plus points for the Hornets, and I don't think that's a bad lock because he had a good game in the first contest against the Nets, and I think they're going to look to him more and more for some off-ball scoring, as we talked about in the last episode.
All right, get to FanDuel. Put those in. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you can continue on with the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL, but also squeeze in some NBA. One more segment to go. Locked On Hornet. Doug, I just want to apologize to the people for how truly sick that segment was.
I will never apologize for being sick.
No, you don't. No, you are accused of never being accountable. Don't apologize now. I will apologize for how sick that segment was. And by the way, before we end, I did want to say thank you to everybody that showed us the picture, tweeted at us with your Spotify Wrapped. I feel like, I don't know if you feel this way, it was the most amount of screenshots that we got for Spotify Wrapped season. I think we got so many with us being your number one listen in your top 4. Maybe we'll lose to Bill. Okay, Bill Simmons, we'll lose to you on at least one. Okay, we'll lose to a couple people every now and then, but a lot of us, a lot of you had us as your number one listen. And man, it's going to get dusty in here, but we appreciate the listeners. It's all the love in the world that allow us to do what we do. So we appreciate the hell out of you.
The right thing to say here is that it's humbling to see that. But in all honesty, it's not humbling at all.
Okay,
It gives me a huge head, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you just continuing to feed my confidence, and because it allows me not to apologize. You cannot take accountability. You cannot be held accountable for something if you never apologize. That's what politics and professional sports continues to teach me. I'm just learning the lessons of the things that I cover.
There you go. Doug, learning and every day. The head is getting bigger because he's learning, but also the ego is growing. What is this surprise segment you speak of, Doug?
I don't know if all of our listeners or if any of our listeners know this because we don't talk about it a lot. Walker has many jobs in this industry. He's obviously on WFNZ, but I don't know if you know this. He also calls games for Queens men's basketball. And recently he got an opportunity for a big call. Queens going up against, is it the rival, Gardner-Webb? Is that a big rivalry game?
Not rival, but maybe like a budding rivalry. Yeah, I was serving as the color analyst alongside Nick Kloss on the call. And so, yeah, that did happen last night.
Yeah, and the situation here is that Queens men's basketball got a big it wasn't a buzzer beater, but it almost was a buzzer beater. It was a game-winning shot, and Walker got to be part of the call. So the first voice you hear will be Walker's partner on the call, Nick, and then you'll get a little dose of Walker. Here we go.
Wow.
McLaurin for the win. Splash! 83 to 80. 0.9 seconds on the clock.
That bucket not so quiet, Nick. BJ McLaurin continuing to deliver for this Queens team. We saw him do it last year. Who better would you want to shoot that three-point shot than somebody already experienced in game winners?
Okay, there you go. So there was the game-winning call. That bucket, not quiet, Nick, is great. So give us the context there. Why was that? Because obviously Nick said something to the effect of that there was a quiet bucket.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't even Nick. It was me so BJ McLaurin scored a career high last night. Stretch big, very good three-point shooter, as you could see there by the stroke. And so he had gotten to 20 or 19 or 20 at the time. And I had said, believe it or not, this actually has been a quiet total for BJ McLaurin, despite approaching his career high. And then as soon as I say that, the next possession, he nails the game winner. And that's why I say that bucket, not quiet, Nick. And then you see the replay and I break that down. So, yeah, that was the call.
That bucket, not so quiet, Nick.
A little weird that you brought that up, but I appreciate it. Thank you for the surprise segment.
Well, I just want folks to know that you are a multifaceted talent on this show, and I really wanted to ask you how you felt about that call. Did you feel like you nailed it? That bucket, not quiet, Nick. I like that. I thought it was sharp, and I want to play it many times on this show in the future. I'm just going to get you ready for that. That bucket, not quiet, Nick.
That bucket, not so quiet,
I
Nick.
think maybe because what you didn't show, at least I didn't think you showed it there. I couldn't hear the audio at first, but at the end, they start going over the replay, and then so I start breaking it down. I might have talked too much at the end, but that's the only thing. Like, maybe a little too much, but overall I think it was okay. I'm with you. I like the context-driven line. If you've been watching, most of the time people will tell you to give a standalone call. But I don't know, man. I'm a radio podcast guy. Like I like doing color analyst work. I'm going to try to do the creative thing, and that seemed to be more creative than trying to give you a standalone call. And so that's what happened. By the way, last thing on that call. The nicknames, you and I, we both love rolling with it. You came out with a top 30 list that ended up being like top 28 because I think
still got to get to that, by the way. We are going to get to that. Sure. It is, it's on deck. Don't worry about it. Dayton
Albury had one of the craziest dunks I've ever seen on someone. In person, it was as disrespectful a dunk as I've ever seen live or close to it, right? Certainly at the college level. Dayton Albury came up with a nickname on the fly, the Dayton Flyer. You like that?
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, we got that one in there too. That's what I was most proud of.
That bucket, not quiet, Nick. Next time Nick Richards hits a big shot, that's just a guarantee. That bucket, not quiet, right. Nick.
All right.
All right, so Brookyln, you got some thoughts on this Nets game tonight? Important? Must win?
Yes, all of them are must wins now. Every game is extremely important. I do think that, so if the Hornets lost the first game to the Wizards because the Wiz went 5 out and they got exposed, it actually was because the Nets did it the first time, right? So the Hornets made amends against the Wizards by getting...
And it looks like Walker's computer has died as he moved to a second location because of the construction. A perfect ending. And really, this is what I get for praising Walker's, for taking a segment to praise Walker's professionalism, his multifacetedness, his ability to be ready for the big moment. Of course, that's when his computer dies. So here we go. Once again, up to me to carry the sicko segment, the third segment, and I'll give you a few of my thoughts on Brookyln. Number one, Brookyln is your quintessential NBA average team right now, 9-8 record. Around 114 offensively in terms of their rating, around 114 defensively, a net rating of almost 0. Well-balanced team. Now, if you remember, the first meeting against Brookyln was during the time when LaMelo was struggling, so didn't score a lot of points. If you're looking for some hope that the Hornets could function offensively in a game without LaMelo, this would be the game to hope because they scored nearly 125 points against Brookyln in that first meeting. The problem was they allowed the Brookyln Nets to score 130 plus because Brookyln, unique situation. They were without their starting center and starting power forward. It forced the Nets to go small, and they took it to the Hornets in transition early in that game. If you remember, they gave Mark Williams all the dunks and said, you're not going to shoot threes. And that really threw the Hornets for a loop. They did not adjust until too late in the game. And that was a big discussion point around that game. So totally different situation here. They're going to be without Cam Thomas, their big-time leading scorer. They're going to be without Ben Simmons, whose size can give the Hornets a lot of problems up front. So those are both two advantages for the Hornets. They're also going to be without Dennis Smith Jr., who unfortunately is not going to get that revenge game opportunity because he sprained his back. He's going to be out for a while. So unfortunate for Dennis Smith Jr., who was, like, just by the numbers, it doesn't look great. But I mean, if you read up on what he's done for Brookyln while he was available, he was a key playmaking piece for them off the bench. He has done good things for Brookyln. Sad that the Hornets could not retain him, because they certainly could use some good point guard play right now in the absence of LaMelo Ball. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for hanging with us here for another episode. We will be back tomorrow to recap this game against the Brookyln Nets and give you any updates on any kind of trade rumors, because we are not beneath that as a show. Thanks. Go check out Locked On NBA. Go check out our sponsors, Game Time, FanDuel, all the people that make this show happen. Until next time, go Hornets, go America. Let's swarm Charlotte.
That bucket not so quiet, Nick.